Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Well, hey there, and welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone. We're in a little bit of a temporary space right now, because you know what? It's a new season. It's a new draft class.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just kind of...
Way to make the best out of a not great situation. The digs are nice here.
Yeah, this is the Inside the Arena studio.
Yeah, I'm not Chris Daniels, but you are.
Niko Tamurian. I can kind of do both.
You can do both.
You know what, Najee? I want to put this out there from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's not often that you have people praising the GM, and it's listen, I know you know this about me. I'm the eternal optimist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super positive, all that stuff. But I don't see how you can be negative about this draft class.
No, I mean, this is, and we've talked about this before. It's like when there's needs to be filled, and there are glaring needs to be filled, especially on the offensive line. I've told you many times, I was like, John Schneider has said, not even has said, but we know guards, I don't know. Historically, yeah, exactly. Opting for more skill position guys. I get that. Which is why the number one overall, not overall, but the number one pick for the Seahawks, the round one pick, was so shocking to me. It's like he listens to my thoughts.
You know, it's funny. I've seen a few evaluations out there. It's like, wait, the Seahawks made the obvious easy pick, but that's what they needed to do in this situation.
Right? No, for sure. I mean, they made a couple of pretty obvious picks, and one of them I actually called to you specifically.
Yeah,
a little bit before it actually ended up happening, but I called it. I mean, I feel like these are the Seahawks fans should be rejoicing. The way the offseason started, it was kind of like, where are we going? What are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, as far as the whole Geno Smith situation, but I just feel like the Seahawks are one of the few teams that can then nail the draft.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question about it. I think that here's the thing. A lot of positions of need were met. A lot of great players. And here's the thing. We'll get to our grades in a minute, and we'll show you what people are saying about it in our social media poll that we did.
Right.
And we'll also hear brief clips from Nick Emmanwori and Jalen Milroe.
Right.
And those are two guys I want to talk about because, first of all, you took your biggest need. Yeah. Not even arguably. You took your biggest need and met it with Grey Zabel, a guy that can play all
name,
over.
By the way.
Great name.
Great name.
First of all, endearing himself to Seahawks fans. Like, how are you going to celebrate? Well, I'm about to dive into some Bush Lights. Like, oh,
He's
okay.
our guy.
And you know what else I like?
North Dakota State. How about that?
Yeah, and you know what? So his teammate in North Dakota State was Jalen Sundell, undrafted lineman for the Seahawks, and so briefly saw action last year. And so we asked him about how Jalen's sister was just drafted to the Seattle Storm a couple weeks ago, Serena, and he immediately he's like, "Yep, third round, pick 26." Like he knew it, and I tell that story because you can tell the kind of character you're getting. Like he knows Serena's draft pick off the top of his head.
Exactly.
I'm not saying he's automatically a high character guy because he's drinking beer to celebrate. No, but
I mean, you want your offensive lineman to be a professional beer drinker for sure.
Yeah, he's a guy that he was just really cool. He was talking about how offensive line is offensive line. I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm going to be so proud to have a Seahawks logo on my helmet when I do it.
Exactly.
I mean, he's just saying the right things. He also meets a position of need.
Exactly.
And then the Seahawks make the trade. Full disclosure, I did a whole article on KOMOnews.com.
Read it.
A week before the draft. So I was wrong, but I was right in some respects. Wrong because I said the Seahawks were going to use pick 18 on Nick Emmanwori because he is that good.
He is that good.
6'3", 220, runs a 4.38 40. And you picture that weapon as a safety, can also do linebacker.
Right.
Like, you picture the player and how a mad scientist like Mike Macdonald is going to use him.
Put him in the Mike Macdonald situation and he's a plug and play type of guy.
Yeah.
He's a physical beast. And he is someone who knows deeply about the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom lore.
Right.
He's already changed his Twitter picture to just the Legion of Boom, Sherman, Chancellor. I mean, what's not to love about that?
Yeah, he said Cam Chancellor was his favorite.
Cam Chancellor's his favorite. Hopefully he's another Cam Chancellor. If I was a Seahawks fan, I'd be thrilled to have someone like that back in this defensive system.
And that's why I predicted that they would go there at 18. Now, I'm happy they went with Grey Zabel. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And even in that article, I'm like, listen, they could easily, as this having a chance of happening, they could go to the offensive line.
Right.
But here's the thing. They knew he wasn't going to last until their picks at number 50 and 52.
Right.
They knew that this was the one guy. In fact, John Schneider said, he's like, we were going to be really disappointed if we left this draft without Nick Emmanwori. So the fact that they went and got him, they made the bold move. Did you give up a couple of those picks. I mean, I shouldn't say you gave up a couple of picks. You really gave up one pick because you moved up.
Right.
But it's did you give up one of those third rounders? Yeah.
But to get the guy you want, though,
yeah,
to get the guy that you felt that you would regret. You don't want to leave a draft for having regrets, first of all.
And again, and so you still had another. So yeah, basically the way Schneider put it is like, we felt like, we gave up that third rounder, but we felt like we have 2 first-round picks now.
100%.
Because Nick Emmanwori has a first-round grade.
Exactly.
And you got Grey Zabel. And, it's just the reason I wrote that I thought they would get him is because everything we just said about McDonald using him in this system, but also from the standpoint that this guy's for real.
Mm-hmm.
He's the real deal. And I think he's going to be just like Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen. I'm not saying they're similar players because they're different, but the way those guys have endeared themselves to 12s everywhere, I think that is kind of what they're getting in Nick Emmanwori. Like, you're suddenly building on a defense that, as we talked about at length, was one of the best in the NFL after they got Ernest Jones.
I was just going to say, you're building on the momentum of having an Ernest Jones. You're building on the momentum of a second-year Byron Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
We're building on just a defensive genius of Mike Macdonald. This is the team that Mike Macdonald. This team looks very different than when he first got to
right.
This team looks so different on the offense side and the defensive side. But he's making his mark on this roster.
Absolutely.
And as a head coach, and a young head coach is what you actually want to do. I'm excited to see this guy play. He's gonna be flying everywhere. He was part of a great defensive unit in South Carolina, a team that didn't make the college football playoff, but a team that was difficult to beat, a hard out in the SEC, and he's played against top-notch quarterbacks, receivers, running backs across the SEC. That's why you're happy to get a guy like him, 100%.
Yeah, I think that
that's why he has a first round.
Yeah, I got a little blurry here for our stream here. So I'm going to bring this camera back.
That's
there
how
we
cool
go.
Our new cameras are.
Well, we got to get used to these ones.
Magical.
So we're going to do grades and everything in just a minute. So hang on that. Yeah. I just kind of want to go down at least the day 1 and 2 picks, and we've got 2 of them left. And we can touch on some of the guys. I love Riley from Notre Dame. I think he's a guy that goes much higher if he's not overcoming a major injury, right?
Right.
I love Damian Martinez. In the 7th round, especially, I have high hopes for that guy.
Let me tell you, I am friends with a lot of Oregon State fans, and as you know, I'm also a Hurricane fan. There's another Hurricane that the Seahawks have drafted.
And we're going to talk about him next.
We'll talk about him in a second. Damian Martinez is a grown adult man.
Do you hear what he said on his little? So when these guys get drafted, a few minutes later, they do a little conference call with us in the media room. Do you hear what he said? He's like, you guys are getting beast mode 2.0. He's like, get ready to watch it.
He's a big guy. He's probably about 230, about 6 feet tall, and he's a monster.
I need to see him play this year.
I've seen him play for Miami. Like I said, I'm a Hurricanes fan, and I mean, he's the guy who's Cam Ward was handing the ball to.
Yeah.
You look at the most impactful offense in the league in college football last year. He was a running back, and he came from Oregon State, and he knows the Pacific Northwest very well. This is a steal at that draft pick, very, very low. But I'm excited. The Seahawks fans, like I said, knocked the whole draft out of the park.
Yeah, I think that I think we illustrate when we talk about guys they're taking in round 7.
Yeah,
exactly. Guard depth in the 5th and 6th rounds. Right. Like, this is a great draft class, top to bottom, and it continues with pick 50 going to another Hurricane, to our resident Hurricane. I think what stands out about Elijah Arroyo to me on the outside, and you watched him more than I did.
Yeah.
But you look at him, yes, he's listed as a tight end, and he is a tight end. He's not afraid to block.
No.
I look at him as like a really big wide receiver.
He's a huge wide receiver. I mean, if I wouldn't compare him physically directly to DK Metcalf.
Sure.
But you probably could put him in similar situations, maybe not out wide. But, I mean, you probably could. And he gives you that extra opportunity to get his hands dirty and block people. I told Niko a while ago, I was like, the Seahawks need someone who can help the offensive line. They did that, the guard. They need someone who can catch passes from Sam Darnold and a few other people. Niko is doing magic over here.
I'm sure this camera doesn't like me today, but keep going.
But he needs someone. A tight end is a quarterback's best friend.
Yeah.
Elijah Arroyo, look at that tight end room for Seattle, it's a decent tight end room. It can get a lot better. I think you're seeing a guy who can probably start day 1.
Sure.
Just ask Cam Ward how much he likes it.
And that's the thing. So you're talking about when you're talking about whether it's Martinez, whether it's Grey Zabel, whether it's Elijah Arroyo.
These are starters.
They are, and you're talking about a new offense. So Seahawks fans, and I know they get this, but like if you're thinking about the offense in your most recent memory, that was a Ryan Grubb offense.
Right.
This is going to be vastly different.
It's going to be very different. A lot of run heavy. It's going to be a lot of big bodies.
Short dink and dunk passes over the middle.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a big body, big catch radius in Arroyo. That's going to be a really nice weapon
and
for
Martinez.
And Martinez. Yeah. So that's like there's a lot to like here. And I think that I think that's the concept that you have to look at it from the standpoint that it is a different offense.
Right.
That they are going to try and go north and south. Mike McDonald said about it's all about moving people, man. I'm like, heck yeah, it is.
Move individuals. Yeah.
And so Grey Zabel's going to do that and hopefully create holes for K9, Charbonnet, Martinez, Kenny McIntosh, whoever it is. You know, they drafted a guy, Robbie Allen, that's going to be a fullback from Alabama.
Hey,
and it's a guy that
drafting a fullback.
Well, do you hear about this guy?
That's a big deal.
Well, he's a tight end there. He's 6'3", 274.
Love him already.
And that's what I'm saying. They're going to be doing like 11 personnel I form and like have this guy block. Like hell yeah!
If you've seen Mike McDonald in person, none of this should surprise you.
No,
because I remember we were going to a post game press conference and unfortunately it wasn't a game that they won. And I saw Mike McDonald walk up and I'm like, I know he's the head coach, but he could be a linebacker.
Oh yeah,
he's probably like a lot of like the receivers on his team, 100%. He's a big guy. So all of these things don't surprise me. I know he's a guy who's disciplined first. He's definitely not to be messed around with, and I think he's drafting that way. He's got John Snyder to draft the proper way and to believe in his vision of what he wants his team to be. And it's going to bully everyone in the NFC West.
Yeah, I love the way this is being approached, and you can tell the excitement. They are 100%. Really pumped about this class.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. As we get to the next pick, and you all know where I'm going with this, you addressed a lot of immediate needs. Okay, the tight end room suddenly looks really good with Arroyo, Noah Fant,
really
and obviously A.J. Barner, who was really good last year.
Right.
The tight end it was a sneaky area of need for the Seahawks, and it's been addressed. The offensive line was not a sneaky area, but it's been addressed.
No.
And certainly you got another weapon on defense. Of the 11 draft picks, 9 were on offense.
Yeah.
Only 2 on defense. And I really think that says something. One was the defensive lineman from Notre Dame I just talked about, and the other was Emmanwori.
Yeah.
But I think that the pick coming out of this that should maybe have even more excited, and I don't think it's going to be an immediate thing, is Jalen Milroe. I think that is there the potential that he gets used in certain packages in 2025? Yes. Here's the thing. Some people, when they heard that and they know he's going into a Clint Kubiak offense, are like, well, they're going to use him like Taysom Hill. Are they going to make him a gadget guy? And Mike McDonald said, no, he is a quarterback through and through. Now, what you can do with that is a lot of different things. It can be gadget plays, although he's not a gadget guy, so to speak.
Right.
Like, when I say gadget play, you could line him up at receiver. Sam Darnold throws in the backfield to Milroe, and while the passing area of his game is the one that needs the most work, he is still a quarterback. Like, he's still throwable.
He has one of the, and I mean, we've seen some great deep passes in the college football lately. I think of Michael Penix off the top of my head. Jalen Milroe, while he does need to work on as far as like accuracy goes, that was the very first thing Nick Saban said. He was so happy he got drafted. He was just clapping. You make Nick Saban clap with a draft pick, first of all. I know that's his quarterback. But he's got one of the prettiest deep throws like have you ever seen.
He can drop it right in the basket.
Yeah, right in the basket. And he's also one of the fastest quarterbacks.
Well, and that's my next point I want to make.
I've ever seen. I mean, he's like Lamar Jackson quick.
Well, that's the idea.
And fast, quick and fast.
Without a doubt. And that's I'm glad you said that, Naj, because I want to get into this next point about Milroe. Now, Mike McDonald said that this year, barring injury or something, Sam Darnold is taking 90% of the starter snaps.
But Sam Darnold is also like not 21 years old.
Well, that's just it. He's 27. Yeah. But where you can use Milroe this year is he learns the ins and outs, and he learns to be an NFL quarterback with reads and progressions and all that different animal stuff. Understanding that this is going to be a ground and pound type of team that wants to run the ball, you can absolutely use him in some zone read concepts.
100%.
You can put him in the gun and have Charbonnet and K9 on either side, or Martinez. Or how do you defend that? Because again, it's not like it's a wildcat package of the past, because the dude can throw the ball.
Yeah,
and I think, and that's why I love what Mike McDonald said, and I'm paraphrasing here. He said that when you talk about Jalen Milroe, that's the kind of quarterback that keeps him as a defensive coordinator up all night.
Yeah, because
you stop the first play, you're like, oh, sweet. But then, like, he runs for 30 yards still.
As the former defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, he knows how stressful it is to defend a guy.
He did it at practice.
Like he did it at practice every day with Lamar Jackson. And let me tell you this: I've seen Jalen Milroe play a lot of football just because Alabama was in the position that they were, in the season. But he's a guy who and it's interesting because as the draft unfolded, we saw Shedeur Sanders take a 5-round drop.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that, maybe the Seahawks, maybe he'd end up in Seattle. I was thinking that. Obviously did not happen. I like Jalen Milroe much better as a player. 100%.
When I look at this, and we did a KOMO Sports End Zone last week about how this team, should they draft a quarterback? And I said yes, and there was a couple of comments. I'm not trying to make fun of the comments. Like, no, they've already got these guys and this guy in the depth chart.
Right.
But I think when you look at it from that perspective, I think that, he's the perfect fit because he's different. Is Cam Ward, Jackson Dart a better passer right now? Sure.
100%.
But you cannot recreate the kind of mobility that Milroe has. And think about some of these guys that are the best quarterbacks in the league right now. And again, please let me preface this. I'm not saying that Jalen Milroe is Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, and Lamar.
But they have to be able to move. You name 3 guys who can move.
That's just it.
Exactly.
And why are they so good? Because yes, they have great arms, but they can move.
They can move.
They can keep plays alive.
Exactly.
And I want to play something here. This is Milroe moments after he was drafted on the phone with us Seattle reporters. Take a listen.
I noticed a community of people that believe in me, that's all in on me. I felt that from the jump when I visited Seattle for my 30th visit and being around the coaching staff. And then it's a great vibe, so I just enjoyed my whole journey when I was there. I've never been to that part of the world, so my first visit over there was, I took it all in, number one, but also just seeing the facility, seeing who's all involved with the coaching staff, meeting everyone. It was just a great visit overall.
Well, you love to hear that. I love that these guys enjoy the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to play a clip a little bit later at the end of this show from Nick Emmanwori because everybody had these things like, oh, yeah, everybody who passed on me, watch what happened. And Jalen had the best of those quotes. I'm not going to.
We can't say it on
Well,
TV.
yeah, I'm just going to say belts to rear ends, but he's,
100%.
And he no hesitation. That's what he said. That's the guy you want on your team. And Najee, what have I lamented about more than anything else ever on this podcast?
Ooh, you've lamented about a lot.
I like to rant.
You like to rant. You've lamented about a lot of things, but definitely protecting the quarterbacks number
Well,
one.
I think my biggest rant, it has to do with quarterbacks,
Okay.
is guys that are thrown into the fire too early.
Time.
And Milroe's going to get time.
Yes.
Barring something catastrophic, he will not be the starter this
It's true.
season.
Yeah,
I think he'll see the field like we talked about in packages and dangerous packages at that. But I don't think he's the starter, even if things go remarkably well for him, until next year at the very earliest, like middle of next year.
Yeah, and even before this draft, you even mentioned a guy like Anthony Richardson, who, the Seahawks could try to trade for when he was kind of like iffy.
Yeah.
I think Jalen Milroe is a better version of Anthony Richardson.
I agree.
100%.
No, so I love this pick.
Yeah.
I love everything about it. I love that John Schneider took control here.
Yeah,
he drafted for need.
Mm-hmm.
He drafted for Coach McDonald the weapon. It was only 2 defensive players, but one of them was an absolute weapon.
Yeah,
and then he really looked at this offense and said, you know what, we needed to be better there.
Yeah,
and you drafted a QB of the future. You drafted a couple of wide receivers late, like Torrey Orton and some guys like that can be difference makers, and they're low risk.
Not only are you seeing John Schneider take control of the draft, you're seeing John Schneider and Michael McDonald being in lockstep.
Yeah,
that's really what you want.
Yeah, and that's huge.
Yeah, that's
and I love it. John quoted Step Brothers twice this week, and Mike's like, yeah, if it's John and Step Brothers. I'm paraphrasing there, but he could tell he's heard like
who
the Step
has
Brothers.
the drum set?
Well, I don't. Well, so I asked him earlier the week about initially when they had the 5 picks in the first 92, which ultimately ended up being 4 because they traded up.
Right.
I'm like, what does that give you? Like, he's like, wow, it's a lot of room for activities. He's like,
wow.
He's like, that's a line from a movie, and like he's laughing. McDonald's like, oh gosh. And then somebody was asking on Saturday about as like a courtesy, which is really cool and standard probably. Mike McDonald called Sam Darnold to let them know they were going to draft Milroe, so he's not sitting on his couch like, "Wait, whoa."
Yeah, exactly.
Which you've seen in the past.
I've seen it with Kirk Cousins.
And so, yeah,
Atlanta.
sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, what was really funny about it was like, somebody asked what that conversation was like, and Mike's like, "Well, you know me, I'm like, I beat around the bush." He's kidding around, like he obviously straight to the point. He's like, it was like a 13-second phone call, and then like, and so somebody said like, "Well, what was said?" And John Schneider's like, "How about I interview you?"
Yeah.
Step Brothers, the interview.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's from Step Brothers. And Mike's like, oh, Step Brothers and John. All right. So as we get into the home stretch of this show, it is painfully obvious that Najee and I love every one of these draft picks.
Yep.
And before Najee and I get to our own grades, we put a poll up on my X page. And voting's wrapping up. But I want to read, I gave people 4 choices. A with like 1,000 pluses after. A, like plain old A. Like we would be thrilled to get back in the college days.
Right.
B, or C. And I felt like if you graded anything below C, you don't know football.
You don't know.
And here's the deal. Like, we understand that you can't grade a draft class until we've seen these guys play on the field for a few years. Like, that's totally and utterly understood.
I want to also point out that the Seahawks draft grade when they drafted Bruce Irving, Russell Wilson, and Bobby Wagner was an F from Bleacher Report. It wasn't an F. It was not good.
And I think that class turned out okay.
It turned out only a little bit.
So this is all superficial because maybe Milroe never develops into a starter. Maybe Zabel can't make the jump from FCS to the NFL. I don't think those things are true.
No.
But I think these are. But again, the full grade isn't known until years down the line.
Right.
But I'll do the fan vote first. Then I'll ask you your grade, and I'll give my grade. And I think I know what ours are going to be.
Right.
About 300 votes, give or take, here from fans. The leading vote get was A, straight up A, 36.4. Second place was A plus 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 plus.
Wow. That means you pass the class. You don't have to take it
like a 4.8 or something. Is that even possible?
GPA.
With a 29.2%. Interestingly, it wasn't a huge gap to a B, which was 24.9, so about 25%. And only 9.5% did C. Now, usually when we do these polls, they're all over the place. You either love it or you hate it. It's just what society is these days.
Right.
So to see essentially 65% of people saying it's an A or better, which is, you know what I'm saying? That's huge because only 35% said B or worse.
Here's the thing. When you look at the Seahawks' needs, look at where they drafted some of these guys, the kind of guys that they drafted. I'm talking about quarterbacks, by the way, who would fit into the system that they want to build.
Right,
being in lockstep with with the GM and head coach, based upon what happened last year. And I'm not including the grade, my grade on like what they've done this offseason outside of the draft, but I'm keeping that in mind because these are complementary pieces.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it an A triple plus.
Whoa!
Honestly, because the biggest need was offensive line. You got a guy from North Dakota State, a guard in the first round who can save your quarterback from being knocked on his butt for half the game. That's what we saw a lot of the time last year.
Yeah.
You got a guy who can be if he ends up starting a football game, Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
In 2 years, he's a game breaker type guy.
Oh, listen. I hope Sam does really well. Obviously.
I hope Sam does really well.
But
I like Sam Darnold a lot. And I mean,
but I preach letting these guys cook for a bit. I hate to use that term, but let him.
No, you have to let him just like learn because and it's obvious because Jalen Milroe is a game breaker type guy. But if you saw him throw, he's got a deep ball, but he also the ball may go this way, it may go that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you have to figure out. And when you're a Seahawks fan and you have a guy, a safety, playing in a defense like Mike McDonald's, saying things like "I want to be like Cam Chancellor," I'm sold. I'm
sold on not just the players but the people here.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's what I love about this.
Guy like Damien Martinez and around, please.
So, and I'll go the same thing. Like I know they're gonna be, oh, you're homers, you're this. Like I can understand somebody maybe being like, well, let's wait and see, and there's no problem with that.
But I would say to them, I'm like, we'll look at what the Seahawks needed. What else could they have done?
That's exactly what I wanted to say next because you can give it a less than an A grade. I'm a little stunned that some people gave it a C. And to those folks out there who did, like, you're entitled to your opinion, but what else would you have wanted the team?
Exactly.
What would you have wanted? Like, what did they do wrong? I can't really think of anything.
I think if I can see me being devil's advocate.
Oh, that's what I'm asking, yeah.
If you maybe wanted to draft a receiver in the first round.
You could have done higher, maybe.
Higher. But, or in the first, 3 rounds,
Yeah, instead of Arroyo, but Arroyo's kind of a receiver anyway.
Instead of maybe a backup quarterback because you just got Sam Darnold. But my question is, in the first round, you need someone to protect Sam Darnold. We saw how many times Geno Smith was running for his life last year. And, I mean, I think the receiving core will be fine. I think you're gonna see Cooper Kupp have a killer season. Yeah. 100%.
I think that, listen, and that's the idea here, is that even if he doesn't for some reason, right? Yeah. That there's suddenly other weapons that can do this thing. And that's what's really special to me about this class is the idea that there's potential for the future. There's guys that are unequivocally going to start or at least contribute this year.
Right.
And even deep into the draft, I think that, we talk about Martinez at length, but you're talking about, 2 guards taken in the later rounds that, Cable do from Kansas could be a guy that, given the state of the offensive line, could find his way into the rotation. And so I think that's important too, especially when you're talking about 6th round capital. I think that it's hard to find fault. Maybe some people think they overpaid for 35, but I don't think they did based on how much they loved Emmanwori.
Yeah.
So I don't even think you can look at it that way. I think that, again, we may pull this video up in 5 years and be like, yeah, you know what? Everybody was wrong on that one.
Right.
But there's something to be said when the folks that aren't in Seattle and the folks that are in Seattle are like, holy cow, John Schneider and Mike McDonald had a great draft.
100%. I mean, you don't want to leave a draft with regrets.
Right.
They will not be doing that.
And there's times in the past, like, I feel like, there was past first-round picks that didn't quite pan out. Like, before COVID or even into COVID. 2021, they didn't have a pick. But after that, you look at the first-round picks, and they've all been complete hits for John Schneider. You're talking about Charles Cross, who was just extended, so he's locked up to 2026. Big deal. He's the anchor of the left tackle spot, the anchor of the offensive line at the left tackle spot. And, something that's totally, incredibly important there. One of the other things that I think is crucial to look at here is the idea that from the standpoint of the next 2 years, you had Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith-Njigba, who are both suddenly stars in this team.
Yeah.
Okay, 2024 was Byron Murphy. We'll wait and see a little bit on that. Like, he showed potential, but he was just a rotational guy last year. Right. I don't want to say just because that's still a lot for a rookie, but we'll see how he develops. And so now this year you've got Grey Zabel. And so the drafting the last couple of years, even if you look deeper in drafts like 2022 5th round, Reek Woolen, just last year 5th round, Tyrese Knight was starting at linebacker next to Ernest Jones.
Yep.
You have to appreciate what these guys did in the draft. So I give it the same thing, A+. I'm betting on them figuring it out in the last few years. I'm betting on the guys that they picked and what I know about them, and thinking this is a great class.
This is a very solid class. Some teams didn't do so well. Some teams drafted 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, sure.
And 2 quarterbacks that I don't think will be that great in the long run.
Yeah.
But I think
how about the Seahawks assuring that Shedeur Sanders was drafted by trading that pick to Cleveland?
Yeah, how about that? I didn't even think about that.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So Najee, final thoughts before we get, really quick before we get our final thoughts. I want to play a quick clip. All these guys said this, but I want to play a quick clip from Nick Emmanwori. These are the kind of guys the 12s are going to get. Take a listen.
I was already entering the league with something, on my mind, like a goal I had, a vision I had, a little chip. But now it's like everybody's on my list. Everybody's on my list right now.
Everybody, that's the guy you want on your team.
You need him on your team.
And you want Jalen Milroe saying belts,
Belt to bleep,
This is the kind of draft. I feel like how Kevin Costner left draft day. Like, we had a great day. Well, that was the owner of the Browns in that movie.
Yeah. Has the Browns ever had a good draft, though? We'll see.
Brady Quinn, Manzello's got to pan out, unfortunately.
Something has to give there.
No, but hey.
We got Myles Garrett.
We've got a lot to talk about going forward with the Seahawks. I know this can kind of be talked about like a slow season, but we're going to break down things as they move forward because suddenly, Naj, when you have these guys that are drafted, rookie minicamp, OTAs, all these things start to paint the picture of what, and then of course, we're only about 2 weeks away from the schedule release, so we're gonna keep rocking and rolling here on the KOMO Sports End Zone. But holy cow, what a fun time it was with the draft!
Oh my gosh, it was a solid. Did you have fun?
I had a blast. The VMAC is a great place to be for it. The War Room's right next door to you.
Yeah,
it's cool to be there as the picks are being made, and by all accounts, they're great picks, but it was also an excitement of a trade. I was walking into their cafeteria to get a soda. I'm a big soda guy.
Right.
My Diet Coke, or Diet Pepsi I prefer, but there's Coke products there.
Coke,
and I look up, all of a sudden it says Seahawks on the clock. I'm like, wait, whoa.
Again?
So I just run back in, made the trade, and then you stand by, and then you get to talk to the players just moments after this life-changing moment for them. It is really cool stuff. Najee, this was a fun draft and a fun conversation with you.
This was fun. I'm excited for this next couple of weeks. I'm excited for the schedule release. I'm excited for a lot of things that the Seahawks have to offer. I mean, this team is transforming. It's transformed a lot in the past couple of years. I think there's a definite plan, a different direction, and we're moving bodies.
Yes, moving bodies, as Mike McDonald said. Yes. And I'll say this, as they go forward, this 2025 class will be the one we'll be watching for a long time. It came after a big shift like you talked about.
Yep.
Let's see how these guys do moving forward. Thanks for checking out the KOMO Sports End Zone post-draft grade edition.
Oh, yeah.
For Najee, I'm Niko. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.